Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
Lots of people are concerned about voter fraud. What if the problem with voter fraud isn't what you think it is?
Okay, I have a favorite story of the week, and I think it is so, as we say, 1850. Meaning, I did it on my morning show.
Which is your morning show.
Which is called Your Morning Show. We named it Your Morning Show so it wouldn't be about the host, but now it's impossible to reference without it sounding like it's about the host. But we want to go much more in depth.
It works great in the first person. As you get to the third person.
Get to the third person. It's a bear to wrestle with. All right, so here's the bottom line. The headline in The Federalist: Wisconsin's vote by mail reform bill tackles a big problem. So he's going to talk about the reform bill in Wisconsin to tackle a big ongoing problem, and you're going to get lost in the big ongoing problem. But I really want to focus on the big ongoing problem and some things that we learned that are going on, like in California, for example, that I didn't even know. I don't even know what this is. I think the circle is already happening. All right, that's a reference to a movie that if you haven't seen it, you won't get. But he says the gold standard in voting is to vote in person on Election Day. By the way, that's so traditional and so nostalgic, David. I don't know if you're like me. I love Election Day.
But it's also very legally important to understand it. We've lost touch with this. The idea is we all show up on the same day. And if you don't show up, you don't get to vote. Because if you don't have the conviction to show up in person, then you shouldn't have the privilege of voting. Because if you don't show up in person, how will we ever be absolutely certain that it was you that signed and filled out that ballot?
Exactly. That's the only way to take it all off the table.
Right. It's the only way.
Watch how as we try to make it more and more convenient, more and more racially equal, we get further and further away from being able to prove that it's legal. And ultimately, while there is a small percentage of Americans that at any cost believe all elections are frauds, you'll see how they're doing it and you'll know where to focus. I want to get back to Chuck's comment because that's a great point you made, David, but now let's let him move on. The gold standard in voting is to vote in person on Election Day while showing the government-issued photo ID to prove your eligibility. That's what I do with my wife, now with my kids, and then we go eat. It's very American. I love it. Problem is, Republicans by and large do that. Democrats don't. And for other nefarious reasons. He goes, that said, 8 states conduct elections entirely through the mail. David, as God is my witness, I did not know that.
Well, and that's not absolutely true. Okay, that's why you didn't know it. Because he stretches entirely. You got to watch out. Where's the English book? We got to remember whenever you use words that end in ly, you are going to give yourself an opportunity to exaggerate.
Well, in California, it's true.
But actually, it's not exactly true in California. What's true is that all the ballots in California are mailed out. Live, real ballots are mailed out. Then you have the option of going in and voting in person, returning it in person. You can actually go in and cast a ballot in person.
Or now, give it to somebody.
But yes, but the point is, it's not entirely by mail. When you say entirely by mail, they mail it to me, I mail it back in, end of conversation.
How about you make the ability for it to be entirely
by mail? Yes.
And
that's
entirely impossible to verify.
Now, it's a disgusting approach that California is taking, in my opinion, because they have, first off, completely violated the idea that you have the responsibility that attends the privilege of voting. And that is that you show up and we see you face to face. It's easy to hide behind the post office. All right. Then also you got the problem when those ballots that are out there, we have no ability, in spite of whatever's said, whatever's written, whatever's signed, you can't know for certain that it was completely done legit. Now, the vast majority of people, I'm talking 90+%, maybe as high 95, the amount of actual voter fraud that can be proven in regards to someone intentionally saying they were somewhere else or someone filling out a ballot for someone else, those situations are extremely rare. Most people, thank God, in this country are still trying to be honest. It's not the voters that are the problem. It's the parties who corrupt the window of opportunity.
Good point. And let me go to the next paragraph. In the run-up to the 2020 election, Democrats, unions, and some left-wing organizations made a big push for mail-in balloting, and for good reason. Polling even showed a growing partisan divide over a practice that had favored Republicans in the past, but no longer. An ABC News Washington Post poll showed Republicans intended to vote in person by 79% to 20%. Democrats preferred to vote by mail 51 to 46. So who would this benefit? Clearly the Democrats. Why did they push it? Clearly the Democrats. But now you open Pandora's box because every state has different laws, including some laws that allow a non-sibling to deliver it, or it be purchased or help filled out and coerced. You know, you talk about a small percentage, but when we're dealing with a handful of swing states that were decided by 10, 11,000 votes tops for the entire state, it's enough to make it murky. But what I'm getting at is America doesn't trust the process. They're looking for some kind of, technological fraud that's taking place when really it's about cheating fair and square, isn't it?
Well, the closing lines of this, in passing Senate Bill 685, Wisconsin could set a precedent for other states. Now, whether or not it passes or not is a difficult question. When you're in a scenario where all the ballots get mailed out, and then it's a question of who gets them back in, and you have parties that are able to organize and pay people to go after those ballots, now you've opened in a completely different definition of what you might call fraud. It's not the question as to who filled it out, though that's also an open possibility. Simple scenario. We know the ballots went to everybody. We know these people have not yet returned their ballots, so we're going to go get those ballots. We're going to go visit. We're going to go visit with the person. We're going to sit down with the person. We're going to help them fill out their ballot. We're going to even tell them who to vote for. Now, that becomes a very different kind of system as opposed to you showing up on the day, going in the booth by yourself with your own conscience and witnesses of neighbors, and you pull the lever, you fill in the blank. Now this is completely different. But then there's a third level of this, and this goes right back to Soros and Podesta. They have been spending billions of dollars to pay people to professionally turn this into a corporation. They're as slick as McDonald's. All right, they know how to
slicker than McDonald's.
Yeah, they know how to get those ballots. They know how to send people out. They pay good money, and they bring those ballots home. Now, is that illegal? No, not technically illegal. Is there something that doesn't seem right about it? Yeah, it sure does.
And the Republicans never meet them on this battleground.
They will not do that because, well, I don't know why. There's lots of reasons why they won't do it. And I'm not a Republican, so I can't speak for it. I just know they don't. And that's why they get their heads handed to them.
Because they start every election behind.
It's especially tricky on college campuses, Michael.
When you subscribe to 1850 Main Street, you're the first to find out what's happening next with new guests, publications, and events. And when you spread the word about 1850 Main Street, you're helping others find real answers to the real questions facing America right now. To learn more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. And please, tell a friend.
You brought this up during the 2020 election, and we followed it very closely, the different states and how they process the ballots. Some are allowed to vet them, but not cast them. Some are allowed not even to touch them and vet them till Election Day. And an already overwhelmed system with more and more absentee voting and more mail-in voting becomes even all the more unvetted as the proclivity to cheat can become all the more greater. It's a recipe for disaster.
Now, just like when we were talking the other day about the Associated Press and their now clear cult of democracy, Donald Trump talked about that in 2016 and began to coin the term fake news. And he capitalized on a nerve touching a nerve that people knew something was wrong. They knew they were being lied to. Now, the people that are protesting what's been happening in recent elections, they've been circling the field, but they haven't been able to land the plane. The problem that we have with mail-in voting is what we're talking about right now. It affords windows of opportunity for people to walk right on the edge of the law and manipulate the system. And is that really, should we even let that window of opportunity be available for anybody?
That's a beautiful statement. Let me show you how it plays out. Republicans are gathering dollars to buy commercial ads. They already have millions and millions of dollars, and they're knocking on homes with ballots that haven't been turned in and helping fill them out and deliver them. That's the difference.
Yes, that's the difference. The big difference is one group of people is advertising on television on channels nobody watches anymore, and the other people.
All right, that hurt.
Just take right across the table on that one. And the other group is actually sending people to talk to human beings to close the sale. That's the difference. And one group is willing to invest millions and millions from George Soros and from all of his billionaires club and Arabella advisors to pay people. This is a job. What do you do for a living? I get votes. That's what I do for a living. And I mean, Stacey Abrams turned it into an art form. She got $150 million to flip votes in 5 counties in Georgia. This is good work if you can get it.
So if it worked in 2020, is it going to work again in 2024? Well, if everybody is still focused on an electronic system or this conspiracy notion that it doesn't matter who the candidate is, doesn't matter if I vote, they're just going to cheat and steal it. No, focus on this stuff. Yeah. Solve this, and you will have more confidence in a fair and free election.
And it's not an easy battle. I recognize that we have become so technologically lazy that the idea of having to schedule an hour of time, drive to the poll, go vote, drive home, it's hard to imagine in most cases, even in LA, because precincts are well, they used to be close, but then see now when you eliminate precincts in the process, now you're playing right into it. But let's say in Tennessee, in Ohio, in Florida, where you've got it's local. It's not that big a deal, but we feel imposed upon to participate in this system. And if it takes me an hour of time, give me a better option, please. It shouldn't be so hard. I should just be able to write on a piece of paper and send it. Yeah, well, you should be because you're an honest person. The problem with our system is utopianism. Every time we just presume there's no bad guys out there and no one would have an incentive to manipulate the process, guess what happens?
Every time a new technology is created, every time a new product is created, a new form of crime is created. I mean, we see it endlessly.
And it's so distasteful. Oh, you have such a negative view of humanity.
It's true. Not that the mafia really exists. I want to get that on the table. To show you that everybody knew this was happening, because we were saying, and I was even critical of President Trump at the time. I said, stop trying to stop this. Stop trying to demonize this. Engage in it yourself. Meet them on the battlefield and then address it later. Well, just to show you, like in Texas, for example, the Texas Policy Foundation predicted the fallout. They said this is before the 2020 election. Due to the political stoking of fears, remember we used the fear of COVID to control people. The fears of contracting COVID-19, a massive push was made, mostly by the left, to encourage voting by mail. Of course, they knew it would favor them. This significantly alters the election day and completely upends the post-election period. Most states and local election officials aren't prepared to process, validate, and count that large a number of ballots. Remember how we were talking about the different states and different rules?
Overwhelmed. Yeah.
Overwhelmed. Yep. Therefore, none of them properly verified and then all counted in different ways. And we all, so, at some point, David, how do you get an old man who didn't even campaign, get elected president over a popular president while he's hiding in a basement? Might have something to do with this more than the electronics of the particular system.
Yeah, and it's just hard. This is a hard one, Michael. People don't want to hear it. They just want to hear this snappy little radio talk guys coming at them saying it's this, it's that, it's back and forth, one side or the other. No, this is complicated. No, voting's not complicated.
We've made it.
Yeah, and voting machines aren't complicated. The people that are talking about voting machine fraud, we put people on the moon regularly. This is not even close to rocket science. This is like about the equivalent technology of Pong. It's not very complicated. It's not as complicated as a video game. So people keep trying to, the machines have been, no, it's not that hard. Furthermore, we could solve the whole problem. Simply go back to paper ballots with little marks that you put on them because you can count those things in lightning speed. It's so simple. The process is very simple. That's not where the problem is. That's not where the fraud is. The fraud is when you're able to employ people to do nothing but go get ballots for a particular side of this perspective. That you got to watch.
Toughest, most unfair question. Was this a 2020 problem, or is this going to be, and do you see any evidence that things have been put in place to protect this from being a 2024 problem as well?
In a lot of states, they have been. In watching key states, that things have gotten better. In Ohio, they've gotten better. In Pennsylvania, I don't know what the status is in Michigan at this stage in the game. I know there have been strong efforts. It seems that there's a sense of trying to balance this thing out. Now, the other thing, and this is sort of the bigger question that you would expect the Atlantic to write on, except they're too busy telling you Trump's a dictator and telling the rest of the world to echo in that choir. The real question here is generational. There's a generation of people that have always taken a certain degree of pride in going and showing up and voting, and they're not ashamed. There's another group of people who basically say, I don't do that. I do everything on my phone. It's a technological divide.
Time is on their side.
And time is on their side, and technology is on their side. It seems inevitable that we will move toward more technological devices that will make it easier to vote. Okay, you can't stop progress, but boy, if you take progress and mix in a big dose of utopianism, you can really have some mess ups.
See the movie The Circle. By the way, it really doesn't matter in the 8 states that conduct their elections primarily with mail-in: California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Vermont. In Washington, they tend to be blue anyway. But there are another 27 states, including Wisconsin, which could be a big state. I don't buy like CNN. It's going to be Wisconsin and Georgia decided. Michigan could be in play. Pennsylvania's still key. Virginia's still key. Florida and Ohio still matter. But there are 27 other states that have no excuse absentee voting. And I think that's a little nod to now you don't even need an excuse. We want to push absentee voting. We want to create a wave towards mail-in voting, and it clearly favors one side. That's the cheating fair and square.
But again, the no excuse situation, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't tell you, because of my travel schedule, I'm not always where I vote on election day.
But that's an excuse.
All right. But see, the idea of me having to hand in my form to the government and get permission to get an absentee ballot actually is problematic for constitutional reasons as well, because who's the person that's ultimately making that decision? Are they a Democrat? Are they a Republican? You get into the point where there can be corruption on that side of it as well. The idea of no excuse absentee is if you apply for a ballot, you can get one. The key there is you must make absolutely certain that the custodial link of that ballot to the voter is such that if a bad person decides to violate that privilege, that opportunity, they're convicted, and it's a serious fine. And you know, this is how you stop that. You don't take it away. You make sure that if somebody does choose to abuse it, they never get to vote again.
I guess that's the power of conspiracy theories, right? They never end.
Great point.
And so, you know, one is the technical vulnerabilities. The other is the perception of the public. There is a growing perception in the public that elections are stolen. And this certainly adds to that. And so...
Well, it all started in Cook County, Michael. Let's just go.
Oh, no, you're not going there, are you? At least, hey, that was done the old-fashioned way. Dad!
But,
I'm disgusted with him too, Jack. He just gave you a filthy look.
But these problems will always be with us. The point you're bringing up is, and I am concerned about that. A lot of times we tend to hear what we want to hear. A lot of people say, oh, it's all fixed anyhow. Therefore, they quit voting and participating in the process.
Which is another great strategy from the other side. But the point is, don't be looking for a conspiracy theory, because conspiracy theories keep you looking everywhere.
Yeah.
And the truth is right in front of you.
Plain
and the
sight.
truth right in front of us from this Federalist article is how they use this to open doors for areas of their strength. That's why I always loved your expression. You want to call it cheating? Well, it's cheating fair and square.
They didn't break any laws. They just had the faster getaway car.
Not the Kraken you were looking for. But if you're willing to think, it's something to keep an eye on.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.